So how much damage did that do? Anything significant?
It killed one man on one of the gun mounts and shot up about 17 up there, everything. But didn't do a whole lot of damage to the ship outside of the catwalk. And then we had one that came down. I have a photo at home that was taken by the ship's photographer, where it just blew the wing off of him, and he straddled the bow. It just barely missed us. So we lucked out. But our skipper was pretty sharp. They'd shell us, and 3 shells would come down the starboard side, and he'd chase the splashes, and he'd move over, and 3 would come down the other side. And then you start sweating, and you think,
yeah,
where the next one? But he'd speed up or slow down, and about the closest they got to us is about 50 yards off the fantail. So.
Wow.
But
yeah, you don't want one of those shells coming down.
They hit the Gambier Bay, right off the first part of the battle, knocked them dead in the water. And we just had to go off and leave them to save the rest of the...
Was that another carrier?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
and then the St. Lo, when I had gotten transferred off of, right at the end of the battle, a lone Japanese plane came in, and they thought at first it was a friendly plane and everything. It came in, pulled up and dived and went through the flight deck. And that ship exploded almost, So it went through the flight deck. It landed on the hangar deck where they were loading ammunition, gasoline, and everything. Right.
And the ammo went off, huh?
Right. So the forward elevator looked like it went about 200 feet up in the air, but from where we were.
So come back a little bit. You said something that had me kind of shaking my head a little bit. You said you were on the port side looking out a hatchway watching the shells hitting the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was going through your head when you're watching these 18-inch shells come in at you? Because you could probably see them in flight, right?
To me, it looked kind of like footballs coming through there. There'd be 3 of them. It looked like footballs coming through there. When they hit the water, of course, it made a big splash, and the dive marker would come up.
And you were you frightened? Were you just fascinated?
I don't know.
Do you remember what you were thinking at that time?
Well, you did a lot of sweating because you figured those shells came down this side, the next one's going to be coming down the middle,
Yeah.
Everything. But as I said, we were very fortunate. They had a great skipper that knew what he was doing and everything. So
he must have.
Right. But the 3 destroyers, the Johnson, Hull, and the Butler, they are the ones that they kept the fleet off of us, and they kept fighting as long as one of those boats would float. They were fighting.
That's amazing. Well, you have a great memory for all the ships in that battle. So
we've had a couple of reunions over the years of the 11 ships that was involved with Lady Gulf, so we kind of keep track of it.
Yeah, so that, I did a little bit of research. That was the largest naval battle of the Pacific War.
It's supposed to be, and now they say it's the largest ship-to-ship naval battle that's ever been fought.
That's right. Yeah. And the first kamikaze attacks off the Philippine Sea.
At Saipan, we had a torpedo run. That guy coming at us with a torpedo run, and they were...
So just to clarify...
I walked out on a sponson. Why I walked out to watch it, shoot at this plane. He could have been strafing. And you think back on it, why are you doing this? But they kept hitting that plane. You see pieces come off of it, and it looked like he was going down in the drink. And by the time they let up off him a little bit, he jerked it back up and pulled it up. And when he pulled it back up, he dropped the torpedo. And I don't know whether the mechanism had been hit or what and everything. When it came out of the plane, it came out nose first and hit the water nose first. And it went down, went under the front bow, the bow part of the ship.
Wow.
Came up on the other side. So we lucked out again.
That is a lucky break. Thank goodness for those gunners, right? Yeah. So did you know any of the guys on the gun crews, or did you hang out with them?
Oh, yeah, we were friends with a lot of different people. Each one of them had gun mounts. I had been qualified for 20 millimeters, but I never fired a shell at anybody. They got shot at a lot.
Well, it sounds like they were determined to do you some damage.
Yeah.
So how about the Battle of Luzon? Do you remember that much?
Well, after we got out of Lady Gulf, we got with the troops to escort them to the lands at Lingayen Gulf, just north of Luzon. And as we were going in that area, we called a kamikaze on the waterline. And it put a hole about 20 by 7 feet in the ship right on the waterline. They flooded 2 compartments in the ship way over on its side, and they thought it was going to capsize because they're kind of top heavy anyway. So he gave orders to abandon ship. Well, we abandoned the ship, and our escorts picked us up out of the water.
Wait a minute. So let's talk about that a little bit more. That's interesting. So the ship is leaning to port or starboard?
Leaning over on the port side.
And they thought it was going to capsize.
Yeah.
And they didn't try to do counter flooding?
Well, it pushed planes to the high side, but the action happened so fast and everything, and they didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of that and everything. So, but when it filled with water, the bulkheads held, and it leveled back up a little bit. So we went back aboard the next morning and brought it back and everything.
So how did you actually abandon ship? What did you get into? Did you have like?
Well, you went around the rope stuff down the side, rope netting down the side, got in the water and everything, and our escorts came in and picked us up out of the water as soon as they could.
So you were just in the water?
Wasn't in the water, but probably less than an hour, And then they.
How did that feel like floating in the water in the middle of the Pacific?
Well, I don't know whether I gave it much thought or not. My idea was to get away from the ship.
Yeah.
And everything, and because if the ship goes down, it's going to take you with it.
Yeah, it'll suck you in.
The funny side of that was and everything. We had a Navy chief that was about 5'5" whole line Navy chief, and he wouldn't go down the rope ladders on the side. And I got on the destroyer that picked us up out of the water. Looked back, and he's sitting in an inflated life raft on the corner of the flight deck. he was going to float off. Okay.
So his idea was, if the ship sunk, he would just stay on the top in the flight deck.
He would float off away from it.
It's genius. Everybody give him grief after that?
I don't know whether the rest of them gave him a lot of grief. I never did really see him, talk to him much about it after that.
That's funny. Now, was the water cold or warm? Or?
Well, it wasn't real cold. I mean, it was just seawater.
Yeah. Were you concerned with sharks or anything like that?
Well, I don't think I gave that a whole lot of thought at the time. I think it was to get away from the ship and somebody to come and get you out of the water. Because you had your life jacket.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was Mae West. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. It had a life belt more than anything else. So,
so the whole crew abandoned ship?
Yeah, except for the salvage party.
Okay.
They stayed well, they would have to leave at the last minute if it sank.
Right. So they scuttled the ship to make sure everything is...
But when it filled with water, it leveled back up. So we all went back aboard the next day. Brought it back. They sent a seagoing tug in, and they got us started back to Lady, and we got one engine going, and we limped back to Lady. And by that time, they had a temporary repair base there, and they put a cofferdam around the side and pumped it out. And we found what was left of the plane, what was left of the pilot. Another thing that saved us, I guess, we found 2 550-pound bombs, and neither one of them had gone off.
That were on the airplane?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
you had a charmed...
we had a very lucky ship, I guess, and everything.
I think you did.
Somebody was watching after us. But.
So any idea why those 500-pounders didn't go off?
Either
he weren't armed or something?
Either he didn't arm them coming down, or they were duds, I guess. I don't know which.
If those would have gone, that would have been...
Mm-hmm.
That would have taken the bow off. You said it hit the bow, right?
Right. It was about in the first quarter of the bow of the ship. In fact, the plane came so straight down that he clipped 2 inside antennas, and the tail of the plane hung on the sponson sticking out, and when he hit the ship, I guess it plopped up against the side.
Right. And so you had mentioned that the type of carrier you were on, you called it a Jeep carrier?
Well, that's what we referred to them as. They were, officially were the escort carriers.
Yeah.
And
those were converted cruisers or something, right?
The hulls were converted Liberty ships.
Liberty, that's right. Okay.
And they put a hangar deck and a flight deck on them, and
so that's what made them really top heavy.
They built about 100 of them, I think.
And what kind of aircraft did you have on those?
We had 25 FM-2 fighter planes and 12 torpedo planes, TBMs.
So you mentioned that you supported troop landings on a number of different fronts. And so the torpedo planes, those were after ships, and the other planes, were those specialized in?
The torpedo planes, the TBMs, the torpedo bombers and torpedoes, you know.
Oh, they had bombers too,
right,
okay.
Yeah.
So they did both.
And they also did submarine searches and stuff, looking for submarines. They carried depth charges on them.
That's what I did in the Navy. I was a sonarman.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. So I hunted submarines for a little while. So you mentioned that you were off the coast of Japan, preparing for the troop landings.
We came back we came back to Terminal Island and got repairs. Went back out, and one of the drive shafts was bent, I guess, so they put us in dry dock in Hawaii for about 30 days and got that straightened out. From there, we went to the coast of Japan, and the Halsey was shelling the coastline, getting ready for the invasion. And we were giving them air coverage over their ships and stuff. And they pulled us back to Anahuac.
And where's that?
That's in Mariana, the Marshalls. And they pulled us back there, and they dropped that first bomb. We went to Adak, Alaska, and they dropped the second bomb. We went in Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, and they surrendered that island to our admiral. And we
was your admiral on your ship?
Yeah. At that time, he was on there. And
so, do you recall when you first heard about the first nuclear bomb that was dropped? Do you recall that when somebody said? What was your feelings, or what were you thinking at that point?
Well, my thinking was that if it does what it's supposed to do and everything, and stops the war, it's going to save thousands and thousands of lives and everything. And people can say what they want to is a horrible thing to do. It probably was, but it saved millions of Americans and millions of Japanese.
That's absolutely true.
Right. So,
yeah, because the Japanese were not surrendering. They were fighting to the end.
No, they wouldn't give up. They'd fight as long as they could fight. They'd give. Well,
that's right.
Yeah. Well,
and then you heard the second bomb went off.
Yeah.
And you said you were in Alaska at that time?
We were at Adak, and we went into Hokkaido, and we found out that they had the Marines they'd captured on Wake Island, and a bunch of British was in prison camps up there. So we had to wait till the minesweepers come in and clean the harbor out before we could get the harbor, into the ship in the harbor. So we found out these guys were about to starve to death. The Japanese had quit feeding them.
Yeah.
So we took canned goods and wrapped it up in mattresses and tied it with rope and put it on the bomb hooks to the TBMs and flew it into the camp, dropped it. We dropped 6,000 pounds of food in 2 days, and they had to feed them.
Now, were you part of the working party that was getting that all together?
No, of course, attached to the supply department, you did all that stuff to help out.
Yeah.
And
did you then later see these guys? Did they?
Well, when we got in port, they brought them aboard ship, and I tell you, they were glad to see us. They really were. And the Britishers, I remember them coming in, their hand salute, man, it's just rigid. But